Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Fem Kyubi? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Tsunade was rushing towards the clearing that Mei and Sakiko had told her about. She had been alarmed when they had told her that they were attacked by a Konoha ninja. She had looked at their crying, distraught faces as they told her that Naruto was still fighting him. She had immediately shot towards the training ground, Mei and Sakiko hot on her heels. When she was about to reach, she saw a figure that she recognized immediately. Naruto was walking towards her position. She was filled with relief that he was at least well enough for him to walk, and then she saw him collapse. She reached him and began running a diagnostic check on him. Apart from some internal bleeding, some cracked ribs and a concussion, he was uninjured. She was amazed that he had come out of battle with a ninja sporting only such injuries. She turned towards Mei and Sakiko who were crying silently and smiled at them. Don't worry girls, Naruto's going to be just fine. He will be back to normal by this time tomorrow. Tsunade said. Tsunade then sensed a chakra signature not far away from their location. She narrowed her eyes. Stay here with him and don't move. She ordered the two girls and continued silently towards the signature. When she reached the clearing, she saw that there was a lone ninja, a jounin, judging by his appearance, that was hunched over on all fours, coughing out blood violently. Tsunade quelled her immediate urge to kill him outright. She needed to question his motives and see if he was acting on his own or was some part of a group. She walked up to him, questioned him and killed him with a swift strike to his heart. She returned towards where she had left Naruto and together the four of them went home. On arriving, Mei and Sakiko refused to let Naruto out of their sights. Tsunade understood that they might be training to be a ninja, but they were still kids. Such an event was bound to change them and strengthen their friendship. Mei and Sakiko watched as Naruto slept on his bed. Tsunade had offered them to stay the night and given them rooms. Mei watched as Sakiko watched Naruto crying slightly, but with a determined glint in her eye. She knew how she felt, it was the same as she felt. Utterly useless. Naruto had always protected them, be it from harsh words from the villagers or from bullies. He was their best friend and if she was honest to herself, she wished that they could be more than friends. Mei was surprised when Sakiko began to stroke Naruto's hair and then she came to a sudden realization, Sakiko might feel the same way about Naruto as well. After they had shifted in together, they had become the best of friends. She knew that Naruto was the heir to two clans, now she just had to confirm if Konoha had the craw for bloodline clans with less number of members. If they did she had every intention of dating Naruto. She grinned slightly, she would be having a long talk with Sakiko after they got home. Time skip next morning. Naruto woke up the next day and was not surprised to see that he was at his house. He was surprised however, by the presence of his two friends who had apparently fallen asleep waiting for him to wake up. He was touched by their concern for him, he smiled softly at them and picked them up and placed them on his bed. Just as he turned towards the door, he saw that his Bachan was also there in his room, sitting on the couch, her head leaning on her hands, sleeping. He got a devious smirk on his face before he shook his head. This was not the time for a prank. She was probably exhausted after healing him and needed rest. He would have to think of another idea for pranking his Bachan. He walked to the bathroom and did his daily routine, but before he left he again activated his Sharingan and saw his reflection. He deactivated it and noticed that his eyes were the same blue that they were before. He was filled with energy and happy, he still couldn't get enough of the fact that Kyuubi-chan loved him as well, and as far as he knew he would be able to date Mei-chan and Sakiko-chan as well after he was named as the head of the clan when he graduated. He and Kyuubi had a long talk about this. While she had said that she didn't mind Naruto taking multiple mates, she had said that Naruto simply couldn't date everyone that Naruto fancied. Kyuubi had encouraged Naruto to tell Mei and Sakiko everything, including how he felt and about the craw. From watching Naruto's memories she had picked up subtle hints that pointed to the fact that they definitely liked him as more than a friend, the lingering hugs, contented sighs, and their blushing faces whenever they went swimming together. While she had expected Mei to like Naruto, Sakiko was a surprise as she had barely known Naruto for half a year, but she knew that she liked Naruto as much, if not more so than Mei did. Kyuubi shook her head, with how Naruto was such a kind-hearted and gentle soul, who was fiercely protective of his friends and family, he would be lucky if he didn't have fangirls of his own. Giggling slightly she went to her bedroom and went to sleep, awaiting Naruto when he came at night. Oblivious to Kyuubi's thoughts Naruto got out of his room silently, he went down to the kitchen, ate some fruit and went down to the training room. He needed to think about his plans, taking in the events of yesterday and more importantly, making sure that he and his friends weren't targeted anymore. They would need to move their training to his own house. He was reluctant to do so before, as he didn't know how his friends would feel if they knew that Naruto was much more powerful than them. But after yesterday, his priorities had changed somewhat. Protecting his precious people was what mattered the most to him now. He also wondered what had happened to the Jounin that had attacked them. He was sure that he had not killed him, however he wouldn't be leaving the hospital for at least a month, Naruto estimated. Killing was something that Naruto had decided that he would avoid. He understood that he could not become a good ninja without killing. It was a part of their job, whether they had to kill someone who was a threat or the mission parameters required so. He was about to start his morning exercises when he was interrupted by Mei and Sakiko, calling his name and rushing towards his position. He smiled at them and was tackled by the both of them. They clung to him, and Naruto reveled in the feeling of togetherness. He just returned their hug and kept on reassuring them that he was perfectly fine. After they calmed down, he told them to sit down and led them over towards the lake. Sitting down, he began his tale of his life. He left nothing out: his parents, his bloodlines. He even told them about Kyuubi. Mei and Sakiko listened attentively. They cried at the hardship that their friend had faced so young in his life. They understood that he was a Jinchuriki, and his own father had been the one that had performed the sealing. They were saddened that he loved Kyuubi, but thought that they were able to mask their emotions from him. Naruto had caught their flash of sadness in their eyes and finished his tale. The three of them were the only ones that knew everything that there was to know about him. So the reason that you always trained so hard is because Madara was after the Kyuubi, and you think that he would come after her again? Mei asked, glancing at Sakiko, wondering how she felt about the situation. Sakiko held her head down. She couldn't believe that the founder of her clan was still alive and directly responsible for the horrible life of her friend. She couldn't bring herself to look at Naruto. Naruto picked up on her thoughts and gently placed a hand on her shoulders. Don't think that I blame the whole Uchiha clan for Madara's actions. Moreover, if we see it technically, you aren't going to be a part of that clan for much longer anyway. Naruto-kun, you said that you had activated your Sharingan, can you show it to us please? Mei asked. Naruto activated his Sharingan, and both Mei and Sakiko gasped. It looked utterly demonic, but his eyes were so full of life and slight amusement that they didn't think that it was scary. They shuddered to think what they would look like if Naruto truly was angry at anyone and was glaring. Amazing. Sakiko whispered. Can you help me with my Sharingan as well, Naruto-kun? Sure. Starting today I'm going to ask Bachan to help with your training as well. Both of you. I'm always going to protect you whenever you are in trouble, and the best way to avoid needing my help would be training to get stronger. Naruto said, looking at them intently. Both Mei and Sakiko nodded happily, and the three of them spent the morning going over their revised training regimen. In the afternoon, Naruto told Tsunade about activating his Sharingan. Tsunade conducted some tests and announced that there were no anomalies with him compared to his previous tests. Naruto then asked her if she would mind helping him and training his friends as well. Tsunade grumbled about it, but eventually succumbed to Naruto's expectant and happy expression. Naruto knew that Mei and Sakiko couldn't use the Kage Bunshin training method, they simply didn't have enough chakra for it to be used effectively. But, having small reserves meant that they could achieve chakra control much faster than him. Keeping this in mind, they had decided that over the next 3 years left for them at the academy, they would train in chakra control, move on to checking their elemental affinities, and then moving on to elemental manipulation. Naruto also had almost the same schedule, along with his own training and his mother's bloodline. He had so far mastered tree walking, water walking, and had started on using chakra to enhance his speed and muscles for added strength, along with routing his chakra to counter blows to his person. The last exercise had helped him in his spars against his clones. While he had an unusually high pain tolerance, he would still prefer to avoid getting hurt if he could. His taijutsu was coming along great, he had mastered the stances, and he just needed to increase his experience in using it. With the help of his clones, he had mastered the 3 jutsus that he knew. In order to increase his skill with them, he would need to train in elemental manipulation. Kyuubi had told him that if he were to master his affinities to the extreme, he wouldn't need hand signs for performing his jutsus. He had a new idea after he had seen that his friends were exhausted easily after practicing jutsus and was brainstorming for ideas with the help of Kyuubi. Naruto went to sleep that night thinking about the future and his new relationship with Kyuubi-chan. With Mei and Sakiko. Mei and Sakiko had accepted Naruto's offer to stay at his house from now onwards. They were just going to go to their apartment tonight and would bring their possessions to Naruto's house tomorrow morning. Mei and Sakiko walked towards their apartment silently, each lost in their own thoughts. Their day had been nerve-wracking, but at the end of the day, they each thought that they had come out of it with a better understanding on their goals in life and what they wanted to do with their lives. As they arrived home, they completed their daily routine before going to bed. Mei snuck into Sakiko's room for a talk that she felt that had been postponed for a long time. She decided that it was time that they talked about their feelings towards their blonde friend. Time skip 21/2 years. Naruto was walking towards the academy for the final time in his life as its student. He was wearing a blue t-shirt and off-white cargo shorts. He completed his attire with an orange hoodie and black sandals. He had a belt hanging loosely around his waist containing a ninja pouch with his throwing weapons. Today he would take the graduation exam and start his career as a genin of Konoha. A lot had happened over the past 2.5 years. The most significant, at least to Naruto, was that he was now engaged to be married to Mei-chan and Sakiko-chan. Although he had a crush on them and had considered dating them, he was surprised when the two of them had confessed to him together the very same day after the attack. Naruto could honestly say that he was truly happy with his life. He had eventually made friends at the academy as well. Most of the clan heirs knew each other, and as a result, when he made friends with Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akimichi, he was inducted into their friend circle. Mei and Sakiko had also made friends with the girls in the class. The teachers had tried their best to actively oppose their intermingling, but had failed miserably. Despite the best efforts of the other teachers, Naruto was ranked as the Rookie of the Year in his class. This was mainly due to their teacher Iruka-sensei, who believed in fairness and didn't think of Naruto as the Kyuubi. As he reached the academy, he spotted a person that he hadn't seen in well over a year. Uchiha Sasuke had demanded that he be specially trained, and the council, primarily the civilian and the elders, had supported his demands. As a result, he had been given a waiver and was assigned a jounin as his teacher. Naruto looked at his arrogant stance and beefy smirk. It filled him with quiet rage. The bastard had followed through on his threat and had banished Sakiko from the Uchiha clan as soon as he was made clan head. Sakiko had always said that it didn't bother her and she was happy to be rid of the cursed clan, but had been morose for the next week. Naruto and Mei had helped her, and Naruto had said that since she was engaged to him, she would belong the Namikaze Uzumaki clan. She had smiled at Naruto brilliantly and hugged him with all her strength. As he entered the class, Naruto noticed that his two loves were chatting together and on spotting him waved enthusiastically. Sitting between the two, he leaned against the back wall and just closed his eyes. He thought back to everything that he, Mei and Sakiko had learned. He was at the very least low jounin in overall ability, and both Mei and Sakiko were mid-chunin. He was currently working on the jounin level chakra control exercises and always trying to maximize his chakra reserves. His reserves were nearly Kage level, and considering that none of it was Kyuubi's chakra, was pretty impressive. Jiraiya had finally told him the reason that his dad stopped using the resistance seal. It was quite simple. He had developed a newer and better seal that had the properties of both the gravity seal and the resistance seal, without the drawbacks of either. Jiraiya had applied the new seal on Naruto, and Naruto couldn't be happier with it. He wouldn't need to wear bulky weights on him. The gravity seal took care of it for him, and with the resistance seal still functioning, he needn't worry about overall growth. The new seal was similar to his earlier seal and had 50 levels max. He had grown heaps and bounds with his ninjutsu training, although he could only complete the wind manipulation exercises and was halfway through the exercises for water and lightning manipulation. His wind techniques were something that was best avoided, otherwise you were liable to be torn to shreds. Naruto loves using wind techniques and was arguably his favorite element. He knew many jutsus for wind element, but the most frequently used by him were the vacuum techniques. He was looking forward to today's training as he would hopefully finally get his soul blade. He was brought out of his stupor when his name was called, and he went and performed the 3 required jutsus to pass the exam. After that, the academy teachers led the students outside and began their sparring exercises. Grades were awarded based upon the length and quality of the spar. Naruto, Mei, Sakiko and Sasuke, along with most of the clan heirs, had no trouble in beating the evaluator, and at the end, both Sasuke and Naruto were tied for the spot of Rookie of the Year. I refuse to accept this worthless wannabe ninja as the Rookie of the Year. The title should belong to me, Sasuke stated arrogantly. There were many squeals and shouts from the emo's fangirl supporting his statement. Naruto just shook his head. He suspected that only the clan heirs and a few others were liable to even make it as a ninja. He had expected such behavior from the Uchiha and had a perfect plan to take him down a few pegs and take revenge for how the bastard had treated Sakiko as well. Why don't we spar Uchiha right here, right now? Winner gets to be the rookie. What do you say? Naruto asked while looking at him challengingly. Sasuke was sneering arrogantly at Naruto. Fine, but we play by my rules. Sasuke decided on an all-out spar where anything goes except killing your opponent. Naruto couldn't help but smirk at Sasuke's naivety. His arrogance would be his downfall. Iruka looked as if he was reluctant for this to happen, but it eventually given in when Sasuke's fangirls had started cheering loudly, and the deal was sealed when Mizuki agreed. Naruto and Sasuke stood opposite each other. Sasuke was in the stance of the Uchiha Taijutsu style, the interceptor. It relied on predicting your opponent's movement and was supplemented by the Sharingan. Naruto adopted the standard academy style as he didn't want to injure the arrogant prick too badly. If that happened, the civilian council would not let him live in peace. Mizuki started to fight and Sasuke immediately started going through several hand seals before announcing his jutsu, shouting Kaiten. Gakakyu no Jutsu, fire release. Grand fireball technique and blew out a moderately sized fireball in Naruto's direction. Sasuke smirked victoriously. Naruto stared calmly at the approaching fireball. He had dealt with far worse than this in his spars against Jiraiya. He noticed a beepy smirk upon the Uchiha's face and grinned. He was so going to enjoy the following next moments. He rapidly flashed through hand signs and whispered, Suiton. Tepndama, water release. Gunshot. Water rose up from the nearby fountain and formed a globe of water before it shot towards the approaching fireball. The two collided violently and steam rose up from the point of collision, but eventually water won out and headed towards the surprised Uchiha. Although it had lost majority of its power, it still drenched him to the bone and pushed him backwards quite a bit. Snarling, Sasuke lunged himself at Naruto and began engaging him in hand-to-hand. He soon realized that no matter what he did he was unable to get past Naruto's guard. Changing tactics, he crouched down and swept his legs, hoping to catch Naruto and trip him. Naruto anticipated this and stepped back slightly, avoiding the sweep, and dashed forward towards the awkwardly positioned Uchiha. Initiating a combo, he punched Sasuke 3 times, 2 in his stomach and 1 on his chest, and then finished it off with a solid kick to his back. Sasuke was hurled towards one of the trees and after impact slowly slid down, gritting his teeth in pain, glaring up at him. "What's the matter, Sasuke? Am I a bit too much for you to handle him?" Naruto taunted. Sasuke again tried and was subsequently thrown towards the same tree. Naruto walked up closer to him and whispered so that only Sasuke could hear what he was saying. "This is for Sakiko-chan." He threw 4 kunai forming a diamond pattern around him and slowly performed hand signs and almost lazily stated Raiten Kaminari Shibari, lightning release. Thunder binding. The wall of lightning rose up in the same pattern of the previously thrown kunai, and Sasuke, who was already wet, was struck by Naruto's lightning jutsu. He screamed for some while before slumping into unconsciousness. Naruto stared at the prone form of the Uchiha for some time before he turned to face his spluttering classmates. He saw that both Mei and Sakiko had happy smiles on their faces, and Sakiko mouthed a quick thank you. "Winner, Uzumaki Naruto." Haruka said, feeling a bit proud. He was his student after all. Haruka then handed him his Konoha headband. As a rookie he was given a different headband than the others. His head, the plate finished in black metal and the leaf symbol was carved in silver. He chose a black cloth to tie the headband on his upper left arm. "Man, you totally smoked that bastard's ass, Naruto. Way to go. Remind me to not get on your bad side," Kiba said as he came and thumped him on his back. "Nah, someone had to do it, the bastard was getting too big in the head." Naruto then spent some time talking with Kiba, Choji and Shikamaru before Mei and Sakiko came up to him and the 3 of them said their goodbyes and started towards his house. Halfway there, Mei suddenly jumped up at Naruto's back and acting on instinct, he caught her. Mei rested her head on Naruto's shoulder and closed her eyes in comfort. Sakiko silently berated herself for not thinking of doing the same thing. Naruto just shrugged and the 3 of them were on their way. "Ba-chan, we're home." Naruto called and gently deposited Mei, who had amazingly fallen asleep on the couch. "Welcome home, Naruto-kun," Shizune answered. "Rookie of the year, huh? Not surprising." She then stepped towards Naruto and ruffled his hair, smiling at the outraged expression on his face. "Congratulations, Naruto-kun," Shizune said and then hugged him. Naruto's expression changed in an instant and he returned the hug, "Thanks, Ni-chan." Shizune then stepped away and hugged Sakiko as well. "You should have seen him, Shizune-san, he practically wiped the floor with that prick." Sakiko was smiling brilliantly. "Oh, do tell." Seeing as the both of them were not liable to stop talking anytime soon, he walked towards his room and thought about the training that he would do today. He had already requested the Hokage to place him, Mei and Sakiko on the same team, with any Jounin sensei of his choice. While the Hokage would have a hard time convincing the council for the unusual team structure, it was not beyond his capabilities. Naruto then took a shower, donned his training clothes, and proceeded towards the training ground in his basement. Naruto sat down underneath a waterfall, meditated, and soon found himself in his mindscape. He looked around and on not finding Kyuubi anywhere, figured that she might still be asleep. He entered his house and found her soundly sleeping in what was his room in the real world and was Kyuubi's room in his mindscape. She was sleeping soundly, hugging a pillow shaped as a fox close to her. Naruto gently got on the bed so as to not wake her up. "Kaiu-chan. Kaiu-chan, wake up," whispering softly in her ear. "MMHMM. Wah. Kyuubi yawned cutely and saw Naruto beside her and blushed slightly at his closeness. She then smiled and promptly grabbed him, laid him down and snuggling closer to him, rested her head on his chest. "You need to get up, Kaiu-chan, you said that we'll begin training in my mother's bloodline today," Naruto said reluctantly, enjoying their closeness himself. "Just stay like this for 5 more minutes, Naruto-kun," Kyuubi said, barely hanging on to her consciousness. Sure. Naruto said before he kissed the top of her head and rested. Barely 2 minutes after that both of them were sleeping soundly. The both of them woke up after nearly an hour, they got out of bed and donned their training clothes. Although they could have just wished for it, they preferred to do things mundanely, using the time to wake up properly. He told her of his day, making her laugh silly after she heard what he did to the uchiha. She softly kissed him on the lips to congratulate him on his graduation, and as the rookie no less. Walking towards the lake, their favorite training place, they both sat down, and Kyuubi explained what Naruto had to do. What you mean to say that I have to stab myself in the heart? What if I fail and don't manage to acquire the sword? Will I die? Naruto asked, frantically bordering on the edge of hysteria. Calm down, Naruto-kun. Do you honestly think that I would advise you to do something that could even potentially hurt you, never mind kill you? You're smarter than this, Naruto-kun. Kyuubi said as she reached over and laid a comforting hand on his knees. I know the Kaiu-chan, but you can't tell me that stabbing yourself in your heart cannot be even a little disconcerting. So what happens to those who fail? Naruto asked. Nothing much, they will obviously need medical attention for the stab wound, but your heart will not be damaged. Your mother told me that the heart mends itself rapidly, thus leaving the person with only minor injuries. If you succeed, you will enter your interpretation of your soul where you will meet your blade. Meet my blade? Naruto asked, confused. Kyuubi hadn't told him about this earlier, preferring to keep her teaching of new techniques as a surprise. Yes. Your blade will manifest itself into whatever form most resembles its powers. Whatever happens after that is unique to every person and is usually decided by your blade. Kyuubi said. Do you think I should tell anyone about this? It seems too risky, they would never allow me to do this, and I would feel better if either Bachan or Nichan were there to observe if anything were to go wrong. Naruto asked. Kyuubi pondered over Naruto's choices. Telling either Mei or Sakiko about this was out of the question. They were too overprotective of him. Although Naruto didn't need it, it always warmed his heart whenever they stood up for him. They reacted quite harshly against anyone that either threatened, made fun of or, God forbid, hurt him. Mei would react immediately and would either hurt or reduce them to tears with her words. Sakiko was more subtle, making her much more dangerous. She had a bit more control though, she didn't anger easily, but her fury was not to be trifled with. Shizune was a valid choice, but she was always against his harsh training to begin with. She understood his reasons and respected him for it, but she just couldn't bring herself to see him as a warrior. To her he was just her cute little brother who she was entitled to spoil rotten. She cared for him after any training accident and would hover around him for the next few days. Once when training with Jiraiya, he had gone overboard and had ended up breaking his arm and knocking him unconscious. The tongue lashing that he had received was one for the record books, and she had ended a rant with a solid kick to his balls, leaving the perverted Sannin gasping and whimpering on the ground. They had wisely chosen to refrain from telling Tsunade about it, as she would have pounded Jiraiya to paste for hurting her godson. Jiraiya would be perfect, but he couldn't keep a secret from Tsunade to save his life. She would immediately come to know about it whether he wanted to tell her or not. Add in the fact that the concerned party was Naruto himself, and you have a situation that you would rather not deal with. Jiraiya, who had remained an active ninja, was much more aware of the threat and would often train Naruto to the bone. His perviness aside, he was like a cool uncle to Naruto. Looking at the choices, Tsunade was their best choice, although convincing her would be a humongous task. She would likely refuse, but Naruto would take his chances. I think that telling Tsunade would be the best choice, Naruto-kun, Kyuubi said after a while. Naruto sighed. I figured as much, Nichan would freak, and the girls wouldn't let me out of their sights for even a minute for the next week if I were to tell them. They can be quite bothersome that way. Naruto said, smiling fondly. So then what do we do in the meantime? Naruto asked. Why don't we go for a swim and after that we could catch up on our sleep? Kyuubi said, already beginning to take off her clothes. Wah. What are you doing, Kaiu-chan? Naruto stuttered, standing up quickly and turning away from her, his face turning bright red. He heard some shuffling noises and then felt her hands go under his raised ones as she pulled him flush against her and resting her mouth near his ear whispered, just changing into my swimsuit, Naruto-kun. Naruto turned around and saw that she was indeed dressed. He looked at her triumphant face and realized that he had just been pranked. Kyuubi just stuck her tongue out at him and dashed into the water, giggling the whole way. Time skipped that night. Naruto was standing nervously in front of Tsunade's room. He knocked, which was unusual for him. Usually he just barged in. Hearing a muffled come in, he opened the door and saw that she was reading one of the scrolls and taking notes. Tsunade looked up from her reading to see Naruto shuffling from the doorway. She wondered what was bothering him, he wasn't his usual self. She got up from her seat, a concerned look on her face. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Are you feeling well? Bachan, I need a favor. It has to do with my training. And Naruto told her what he had to do in order to train further in his mother's bloodline. I refuse. Naruto, you are taking a huge risk, however small the repercussions might be. I forbid you to stab yourself. Have you gone mad? Tsunade asked, shaking Naruto slightly. But I need you to do this for me, Bachan. You are the only one that I trust that even has the chance of allowing me to do this. And besides, due to my regeneration, the wound will probably heal itself. I am just asking you to be there as a precaution. Naruto asked, his voice full of determination. Tsunade sighed at seeing the determination shining in his eyes. Even if she refused, she knew that Naruto would just do this as soon as he was able to give them all the slip. He was a master at hiding whenever he didn't want to be found. Fine, Naruto-kun, but please think this through. Tsunade stated and swiped at her eyes, turning away from him, making a shooing motion towards the door. Don't worry, Bachan, I'll still be around to annoy you for a long time to come. Naruto said softly before he stepped away and went on his way. Tsunade laughed softly. Naruto could be pretty dense sometimes, but would always say things that strike away your insecurities. She was always worried that she had been cursed to have her loved ones taken away from her. When Shizune had informed Naruto of this, he had sat down with her and had a long talk. She had stared incredulously at him when he had systematically shown her his point of view on the things that she had been blaming herself for. It didn't cast off her fears completely, but she felt as if a huge load had been lifted from her. Both of them had come out of the situation with a better understanding of themselves and each other and had cemented their relationship. Damn brat. She said, smiling. Naruto then spent the rest of the evening with Mei and Sakiko. They trained some, had dinner, and had fun with Shizune. All of them had noticed a slight change in Naruto's behavior, but didn't comment on it, figuring that if it was important enough, he would tell them. At night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Naruto and Tsunade made their way down to the training ground. When they reached there, they were surprised to see Shizune standing there, arms folded across her chest and just staring at them. Naruto wondered what she was doing here. He knew that when Tsunade promised him that she wouldn't tell anyone, she meant it. Hey there, Ni-chan, what are you doing here? Naruto asked casually. Drop the act, Naruto-kun. I saw the way you were acting the whole evening, and after that when I went to ask Tsunade something, there was something off about her as well. I have known you for more than 2 years, Naruto-kun. Now tell me why you are here and what are you hiding? Shizune huffed. Quite smart, aren't you, Ni-chan? Naruto sighed. He then proceeded to tell her about his training plan for today. He was surprised when she immediately didn't reject the idea and march him to his room. His surprise must have shown on his face because she smiled sadly at him. You are an official ninja now, Naruto-kun. All that I can do now is advise you and help you. I can't stop you from training in whatever way you like. I never could really, but I like to think that I could. Just promise me one thing, Naruto-kun, please never leave out what you are training in because you think I won't approve. Shizune said. Naruto felt a rush of affection towards Shizune. He just smiled at her and walked away from them and stood in a clearing. Taking Kyuubi's advice, he released his chakra and gravity seal. Controlling his sudden burst of chakra, he breathed out and got ready. Taking a standard katana, he took a deep breath and stabbed it clean through his torso, impaling his heart. Tsunade and Shizune were expecting Naruto to do this, but they couldn't resist the gasp that escaped from their lips. They grabbed onto each other, whether to stop the other or themselves they didn't know. They saw as blood dripped from the fatal wound, dribbling onto the ground. Then there was a sudden explosion of chakra, and they were amazed to see that the sword impaling him simply vanished into particles of black light. They began to approach him, not sure if his training was complete or not. Just as they were about to come near him, his chakra exploded out of him, surrounding him, preventing anyone from interfering. With Naruto. As soon as Naruto had stabbed himself, the world stopped around him, leaves on the trees stopped swaying, ripples in the lake froze in their place, and everywhere he looked, he could only see himself as the only thing, irrespective of whether it was alive or dead, that was moving. He saw numbly as his chakra swirled around him and formed a sort of protective barrier. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, and he closed his eyes trying to ignore the pain. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was in a vast expanse of small hills covered in grass and could see that it was nighttime. The moon was bigger than he ever remembered seeing and was a sinister shade of red. Huge mountains whose peaks were hidden by storm clouds could be seen in the distance. He was lying on his back facing upwards, and he noticed that there was not even a single star to be seen. Hello, Naruto. Naruto quickly flipped onto his feet and looked at the person who made the sound. He was clothed in a tattered black hooded cloak that was fraying out into tattered ends. His hood was hiding his face from view. He was slightly taller than Naruto, his body built for speed. Who are you? And where are we? Naruto asked, his senses on high alert. I'm your sword, Naruto. Whether you are worthy of wielding me or not has yet to be seen. Saying that, he lifted his hood and revealed his face. He was fairly young, maybe in his late teens. He had long ragged black hair, but had no other distinguishing features about him. He bent down on his knees and placed his open palm onto the grass. Naruto sensed him concentrating his power and suddenly, the whole ground for as far as he could see, there were various types of blades sticking out of the ground. He grabbed a sword near him, pulling it out and swinging it a few times. "Use your blade, Naruto," he said as he slowly walked towards him. Naruto looked around, there was nothing around him that he was familiar using. Deciding to test the waters a bit, he took out 2 kunai and held them in each of his hands. He looked towards the person standing in front of him and noticed a look of disappointment on his face. "Let us begin." Saying that, he simply vanished from Naruto's sight. Naruto, sensing an attack from his right, ducked below just as the blade passed over him. Still crouching, he pivoted on his hands and tried to kick him, but he vanished again. This is going to be a long fight, Naruto thought. Naruto again sensed him, this time slightly behind his right side. He turned around and slashed at him. He noticed a look of surprise on the man's face and smirked slightly. "It seems that you are well trained, Naruto. That's good, it would make my job much easier. Choose a blade, Naruto. One of the countless blades that you see before you is your soul blade. Find it and you will come to know my name, and you will succeed in your training." Naruto again looked around, closing his eyes. He tried to find a connection, a gut feeling, anything that would help him complete this training. He felt a pulse, but it didn't come from any particular direction. "Prepare yourself." Snapping his eyes open, Naruto picked up the nearest blade. The man just vanished again. Naruto had spent upwards of approximately 3 hours fighting what he figured was his blade. He had lost count of the number of times that he had picked up a sword that was shattered by him. Although he had begun to last longer with each subsequent broken blade, getting used to fighting with it, he couldn't figure out the pulsing that he felt. It had been growing stronger with time, to the point that he was getting seriously distracted by its presence. He glanced around himself, he could hardly believe that he had used up almost all the swords here, there was only one left. He had been using his Sharingan for quite some time now, and it had enabled him to fight the man on somewhat even grounds, even with his inexperience in handling blades. Naruto knew that he had to finish this fight quickly, he didn't have much energy left, and he had received multiple cuts and numerous scratches throughout his fight. Although he could now track his opponent's movement much better than he had been able to when he had started off, he was getting exhausted. He glanced towards the sword, it was an axe-type halberd. Naruto picked it up, sighing with relief. He figured that this was his sword, and finally this pulsating feeling he was feeling could stop. He blocked a sideways slash to his chest, using his other hand to reinforce his guard, and pushed the offending blade away. The man stumbled slightly as he was pushed backwards. Capitalizing on the situation, Naruto dashed forward and jumped high, landing towards the man's position as he held the halberd downwards. The man looked up at him and swung his sword at Naruto's weapon directly. Much to the surprise of Naruto, this weapon shattered under the strong strike as well. "It seems that you have not found your blade, Naruto. I'm sorry, Naruto, but it's time for you to die. Pity, you wouldn't be able to fulfill your dream now, isn't it, Naruto?" Naruto quelled his anger at his opponent's mocking tone. It would not serve him well if he were to lose his temper in this fight. The pulsing feeling within him got even stronger, and it was then that Naruto understood. Concentrating on bringing out the feeling, he gasped slightly as a wonderful feeling of completion filled him. He looked down at his hand and gazed at his sword. It truly was a work of art. It was a Dayton, Japanese long sword with a black blade. The crossguard had 4 protrusions bent in the shape of an Indian swastika. The hilt of the sword was wrapped in rough edges in black color, with a short length of chain hanging from its end. He looked up at his opponent, and now it was his turn to gasp. Naruto's eyes were alight with an unearthly glow that further emphasized his Sharingan, bringing the 3 black tomo in sharp contrast against the golden eye. He saw as Naruto concentrated his power, making his chakra swirl around him, its color slightly changed. It was now completely pitch black, so dark that it seemed to suck the light around it. On the edges it was tinted with a dark crimson color. He watched as Naruto was encased in his own chakra, a pillar of dark light extending upwards. As the chakra spike died down, he saw Naruto approaching him, much like he had earlier. "It would seem that you have finally found your blade, Naruto. I hereby accept you as my wielder and master. Go forth, Naruto, and proudly call out my name. Meanwhile. Shizune and Tsunade were nervously waiting for a sign, anything that would help them determine Naruto's condition. They were startled out of their thoughts when Naruto's chakra spiked once before dying out completely. They saw that other than looking a little worse for wear, he had no other apparent injuries, and the katana that he had stabbed himself with and the subsequent wound was nowhere to be seen. Sighing in relief, they had almost reached him when they were blown away by his chakra, having been caught off guard. They watched in slack-jawed amazement as Naruto's chakra was released to its fullest potential, although it had gone through an unusual color change. As the chakra died down, they saw as Naruto unsteadily got up on his feet and holding out his right arm in front of him whispered, "Tensa Zangetsu, heavenly chain slaying moon." They watched amazed as small particles of Naruto's chakra seemed to make a rough shape of a sword before Naruto swiped his hands to his side, revealing his blade to them. "Hey Ni-chan, Ba-chan, I completed my exercise and you didn't even have to heal me." Shizune ran forward towards him and began checking him all over for injuries and finding nothing that his regeneration couldn't handle, just gave him a hug to congratulate him. The three of them then proceeded out of the training grounds listening to Naruto's training and then turned in for the night after Naruto had dispelled his blade. The next morning. Naruto woke up the next morning and the first thing that he did was to call his blade to him. It appeared before him looking as if it was his chakra that was making the blade. Smiling that it was simply not just a dream, he bounded off to get ready for the day. They had a 2-day holiday at the academy. During this time the results of the tests were evaluated and a complete report was submitted to the Hokage. He then decided the team placements according to what type of a team it would be, whether it was a tracker team, assault team or an infiltration team. Naruto had already met him and the Hokage had promised Naruto his team request, but he had laid a condition that he would only claim his clan head status after he made Chunin. Naruto knew why the Hokage wanted to delay his coronation as clan head. He had neglected to inform the Hokage about his true level of skill. He thought that Naruto was high genin and skills with unusually high chakra reserves. But delaying the coronation would mean that he wouldn't be able to ask Mei-chan and Sakiko-chan to be his wives today as he had planned. So he had refused his condition and had played the guilt card on him. 20 minutes later he was walking out the Hokage tower with official papers naming him as the clan head of the Namikaze and the Uzumaki clans. He knew that once the council came to know of this, they would fight tooth and nail to reverse it. Too bad that the Hokage had been granted temporary control of the Namikaze clan and he had declared Naruto as the next clan head. Shaking his head out of his thoughts, Naruto got up and went towards his wardrobe, performing a few hand seals and then biting his thumb, he smeared some blood on the underside of the drawer. A scroll appeared in a puff of smoke. He again went through the same procedure, but with different hand signs, and there were 2 jewelry boxes. Naruto had pondered his girl's small chakra reserves for a long time, although they were much stronger than a genin's almost mid-chunin, they were still low compared to him. If they were to survive in the ninja world as his mates, they would need to grow stronger. Naruto would never forgive himself if any harm were to come to them due to him. They knew this and had always taken their training seriously. In order to help them increase their chakra reserves, he had designed these rings. They were similar to the diamond that Bachan had in her forehead. This was where he had gotten the idea for this particular seal. But unlike Tsunade's diamond which directly influenced the cells of her body allowing her to rapidly heal herself from virtually any wound, be it fatal or not. That was the reason that she would always say that she would never die in battle. The seal Naruto had created allowed the user to store their excess chakra over time into the ring and when in a pinch, they could release the seal and the chakra stored in it would be directly released into their chakra circulatory system. He was planning to propose to them after the date that he planned to take them on today. Both rings were made of chakra conductive platinum, the seal had been inscribed in intricate patterns on both the sides of the ring. Mei's ring had the engravings in emerald stones and Sakiko's in rubies. He had offered a ring to Kyuubi as well, but she had just stated that she would be happy to carry his mate mark and didn't need any rings. Naruto had blushed on hearing that and had changed the topic as soon as he could. Time skip that evening. The trio of newly minted ninja had gone out on a date to celebrate their graduation. The date had gone great, they had gone to Ichiraku's to have dinner and after that Naruto had escorted them to the top of the Hokage mountain. They were sitting down, with both of the girls leaning comfortably on Naruto on either side of him. Pushing them away slightly, Naruto got up and motioned for them to do the same. He smiled inwardly at their slightly confused looks. As they stood up and approached him, he got down to one knee and proposed to them. "Mei-chan, you were the only person aside from Kyuubi-chan who acknowledged me. You remained my friend even though it made your life difficult. I would be honored if you would agree to spend the rest of your life with me. Sakiko-chan, even though I came to know you after Mei-chan, you are just as precious to me as she is. You always helped me get through my difficulties and accepted me as your friend. I promise to protect the both of you with everything that I have. Terumi Mei, Sakiko-chan, will you marry me?" Both the girls had tears brimming in their eyes. Silently, they nodded and swallowed through the lump in their throat and said a shaky yes. They gasped as they saw their rings and extended their hands. Naruto slipped the rings on their hands and kissed their hands lovingly. After he got up he was hugged enthusiastically by the both of them. Sakiko leaned forward and captured his lips in a soft kiss followed by Mei. They spent the rest of the night atop the heads of the previous Hokage's heads and the girls would occasionally tilt their hands in different directions, admiring their new rings. Naruto told them the special properties of the ring and they went home walking happily, the girls with a skip in their step. Shizune, who was hiding in the trees surrounding the area that they were in, smiled happily. Naruto had approached her inquiring about how he should handle the date tonight. She was proud of how her little brother had handled the situation. You know Ni-chan, I really don't appreciate you spying on me. Shizune barely held in the scream that wanted to erupt from her lips. She looked up from her hiding position and saw Naruto leaning against a tree on a higher branch. Shizune smiled sheepishly, I just wanted to see how your date went. I'm sure. Well anyway, they are heading home now, you should too. Saying that, Naruto went up in a puff of smoke. I didn't even notice him, I wonder how long he knew I was here. Shizune thought. Walking down the road, Naruto smiled. Time skip the next day. Naruto, Mei and Sakiko made their way to the academy to know their team placements. Naruto hadn't informed them of the deal that he had made with the Hokage, intending to surprise them. They were a little late to arrive at the academy, they had stayed up late last night discussing their plans and life in general. They had decided that they would only trust their designated sensei after they had made sure that they could be trusted. Until that time they would limit the skills that they would show, especially Naruto. When they entered they saw that the whole class was assembled and was staring at them. Shrugging, they went up to the usual spot in the classroom and waited for their teacher to come in. Sitting down, Naruto felt a heated glare directed in his direction and looked up to see the Uchiha glaring at him. He was still covered in bandages from their last fight. He saw as he got up and approached his position, Naruto, unnoticed by anyone, tensed slightly. I demand that you teach me the jutsus that you used against me. As an Uchiha who specialize in ninjutsu, I have the right to know every jutsu that you know. If you disagree, I can make your life very difficult, the council will do anything to please me. Sasuke stated arrogantly. Man, he has all the subtlety of a Biju in the middle of Konoha in broad daylight. Naruto thought. Anything you say him. Naruto said suggestively. Sasuke turned red with anger, but just then Iruka entered and told them to settle down. I would watch your back, this isn't over. You are welcome to try anytime, bastard. Alright class, quiet down. Shouted Iruka. He then proceeded to give a lengthy speech of what it meant to be a ninja. He proceeded to tell them his experiences, but seeing half the class sleeping and the rest of them chatting again, he sighed and proceeded to announce the team placements. Naruto didn't pay any attention to majority of the names being announced, but he made a note of the placements of the clan heirs. Sasuke and his number 1 fangirl Haruno Sakura, along with a boy named Sai, was composed of Team 7, Team 8 was Hyuga Hinata, Inyazuka Kiba and Aburami Shino, Team 10 was Yamanaka Ino, Akimichi Choji and Nara Shikamaru. Naruto was keeping a close eye on Mei and Sakiko while the teams were being announced. He saw as they were relieved that none of them were on a team with the Uchiha, and as the teams were announced they grew excited, glancing at each other and then at Naruto. As Team 10 was announced, they looked around the class once before squealing and jumped at Naruto, hugging him. Naruto-kun, you had something to do with this, right? Mei asked sweetly. Ask me no questions and I'll tell you no lies. Naruto said cheekily. Mei and Sakiko smiled happily and squeezing him a final time went to their own seats. And as you might have guessed, Team 11 will be Terumi Mei, Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sakiko. Iruka said. You seem to have got the names wrong, she doesn't belong to the Uchiha clan, I banished her from the clan last month. Sasuke stated with a smirk. Yes sensei, I don't belong to that worthless clan anymore. I am now a part of the Uzumaki clan, as Naruto-kun's wife. Sakiko said happily. Me too. Mei chimed in. The whole class as well as Iruka were gaping at the three of them, doing a perfect impersonation of a fish. Anyway. You will meet your Jounin senseis this afternoon, after lunch. Dismissed. Mei and Sakiko were cornered by their friends asking about this new development and they moved out to the grounds. Time skip lunch. The whole class was assembled waiting for their Jounin senseis to arrive. Naruto sensed someone approaching the classroom and the door opened to reveal 10 Jounins. 3 of them stood out the most. The first was a man of approximately 6'3" and had brown eyes, short black spiky hair and beard. His clothing consisted of the standard Konoha ninja uniform with the sleeves rolled up. He also wore a flak jacket, regular ninja sandals and forehead protector. He also wore the ninja sash around his waist, with the kanji for fire, K, marked on it, a bracelet on both of his wrists and bandages on both arms of his outfit. He had a cigarette in his mouth and appeared bored. The second person was a woman who was quite beautiful, Naruto observed. She had long and black shoulder-length untamed hair and very unique eyes that are red in color, with an additional ring in them. She was wearing makeup consisting of red lipstick and purple eyeshadow. She was wearing a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible. Over this is very broad material which resembles bandages with a pattern on it, similar to those of rose thorns. Her hands and upper thighs were also wrapped in bandages, and she wore the Konoha forehead protector and regular ninja sandals. She appeared to be quite strict, and when she looked at Hinata, she gave her a faint smile. The third person was surprising to most of the people in the class. She didn't appear to be much older than them, 15 to 16 years old at the most. She, like most competent kunoichi, was in top shape and quite attractive. She had purple-violet, straight hair reaching down to her waist and chocolate-brown eyes. She was wearing a soft layer of reddish-purple lipstick, which went well with her hair and skin tone. She was dressed in a skin-tight black, full-sleeved shirt and wore the flak jacket above it. She was also wearing grey tights that went up to her mid-thigh. She wore her forehead protector as a makeshift bandana, covering the top of her head, her hair falling down the sides. She wore black ninja sandals as her footwear. He noticed that her forehead protector was the same as his, implying that she was also the top ninja of her batch. The thing that intrigued Naruto the most, however, was the sword that was strapped to her back. It was a daten, Japanese long sword, the same type of sword as him. She appeared to be quite nervous but hid it well. He doubted that anyone else would have noticed it. As the Jounins began taking their assigned students away, amazingly enough, she was the one that approached their group. "Team 11?" she asked, inclining her head in their direction. The three of them nodded. "Follow me." Saying that, she turned around and walked out of the class. Mei and Sakiko looked at Naruto, who shrugged and proceeded to follow him. They traveled atop the rooftops and ended their journey at a standard nondescript training ground. Their Jounin instructor motioned for them to sit down. "Now then, I'm sure that you have a lot of questions. But before you ask them, why don't we introduce ourselves?" "I'll start," their instructor stated. "My name is Yugao Yuzuki. I like training and reading novels. I dislike people who take things for granted and people who lie to me. I don't have any particular dislikes other than that. My dream is to become the best Kenjutsu mistress in Konoha and to raise a family. Why don't you go next, Mei-san?" "Alright, my name is Terumi Mei, but you can call me Uzumaki Mei as well. I love Naruto-kun, Sakiko-chan and my adoptive family. I like training as well and also lazing around in the hot springs and swimming. I dislike arrogance in anyone. I also don't like those who treat Naruto-kun badly and old perverts. My dream is to master my bloodline and be the best ninja that I can be, also to have many kids with Naruto-kun," Mei said with a faint blush on her cheeks and winked at Naruto. "You are going to have my babies first, Naruto-kun, and only after that can Mei-chan stake her claim," Kyuubi said to Naruto. Naruto immediately blushed deep red and started spluttering nonsense. Well, moving on, Sakiko-san, if you would," Yuga said, seeing as Naruto was incapable of coherent thought at the moment. "My name is Uzumaki Sakiko. I love Naruto-kun and his family. I like to spend time with him doing training and other stuff. I dislike the Uchiha clan and bullies. My dream is to become the best medical ninja, rivaling Tsunade of the Sannin, and also be a good wife to Naruto-kun. I also want to help Naruto-kun achieve his dream as well," Sakiko stated, happily looking directly at Naruto. "Admirable goals. Now lastly, Naruto-kun," Yuga said. Sakiko and Mei both glanced at Yuga when she said this, noting it for future reference. There was something that she was not telling them. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I love my future wives and my family. I like training and am starting on Kenjutsu. I also like to write novels of my own. I dislike anyone who harms my family and also stuck-up pricks. I hate politics. My dream is to restore my clan and make it the strongest clan in Konoha and making my parents proud," Naruto said with a determined glint in his eyes. "Very nice. Meet me at this place tomorrow morning at 7. I will administer the genin test and see if you are ninja material," Yuga said. She was surprised when they didn't question her on her statement. She had asked her Jounin sensei what he had meant and expected them to do the same. Her confusion must have shown on her face because Naruto said, "We already know that, Yuga sensei. Konoha always tests the academy graduates to see if they are capable of working together as a team. Well. It appears that you have already passed the test, but I still need to test your abilities, so let's meet here tomorrow," Yuga said. She needed to speak to the Hokage. The three of them nodded and proceeded to go to their home for some rest and relaxation and then some light sparring later. When they got home, Naruto was surprised to see Jiraiya there. Both Mei and Sakiko made excuses to be elsewhere. It was not that they hated him or something, they thought that he was plain weird and much too perverted for their likes. "Hey brat, heard you are now an official ninja of Konoha. Congratulations, your life is now owned by the Hokage," Jiraiya said in full hermit mode, nodding his head seriously. "Yo. Hiro Sennin, what are you doing back in Konoha?" Naruto asked. "Damn it brat, stop calling me that," Jiraiya shouted. "I'll do that as soon as you stop peeking on girls in the hot springs," Naruto deadpanned. "Like that's going to happen," Jiraiya huffed. My point exactly. Naruto smirked, laughing at Jiraiya's face after he fell for the obvious trap. Anyway, as promised I am going to teach you Minato's signature technique, the Rasengan, spiraling sphere, Jiraiya stated pompously. He dug into his pockets and handed him a scroll. That has all the things that you will need to learn the Rasengan. I would teach you myself, but I have learnt that you work best when working by yourself. All that you need is guidance. But if you need help, just wait until the next time we meet. I really can't afford to lose more time here. See you around, brat. Jiraiya walked off saying that. "Ooh boy, it's been a long time since I have been to the Konoha hot springs, duty calls." Jiraiya thought, giggling perversely as he rushed to find an undetectable peeking spot. Naruto would have called Jiraiya on his lame excuse, but was busy reading the description of the technique. There was a basic explanation of the jutsu added by handwritten notes, presumably written by Jiraiya. While reading, Naruto was walking towards the training grounds. The Rasengan is chakra that has been rotated and then compressed into the shape of a sphere. Rasengan does not require any hand seals to use, relying only on the chakra control of the user. Once it is complete, it becomes self-sustaining, which does not give the Rasengan a definite limit like some other jutsus. The compacted nature and moving speed of the chakra allows the Rasengan to grind into whatever it comes in contact with to inflict major damage. This tends to launch the target backward after being hit, or, if the target is lying on the ground or being launched to the ground, the destructive force is enough to form a crater. Naruto practically had drool coming out of his mouth as he read the description. He skimmed through the document while having his Sharingan active. He had discovered that when he had it activated he had photographic memory, which he mused must be necessary to copy stuff. Jiraiya had broken down the learning process into 3 simple steps. He had added a note saying that, if Naruto truly wanted to master the jutsu, he would need to follow the steps religiously. Naruto read the first step. It required that he be able to completely burst open a water balloon, using his chakra only. Jiraiya had written that by spinning the water inside in multiple directions at once using only the user's chakra, it would be possible. This step emphasizes rotation. Naruto excitedly got out a scroll that Jiraiya gave him and unsealed it to find a whole carton full of water balloons. Naruto then created 200 clones and directed them to fill all the balloons and gather them in a pile. After doing that they dispelled and Naruto began training to learn the Rasengan. Naruto had been trying to complete the first step for 3 hours now. He had made progress in bursting the balloon, but it still took him a lot of time. This was much more difficult than the other chakra exercises that he used. Fundamentally there were only 2 chakra control exercises, tree and water walking. All the other exercises that he had been practicing were branches that he used to augment his fighting prowess. Although they helped in increasing control, they were techniques that could be performed by anyone that had mastered the basic 2 exercises. Chakra control only increased with experience in using it. Naruto had never been more thankful for shadow clones. But this jutsu was at a whole other level. The scroll described it as one of the most advanced form of chakra shape manipulation. He was using his Sharingan to see the chakra flow and improve it to better match the requirements. He brought his hand forward and looking at it intently, channeled his chakra to it and suddenly the balloon popped and was torn to smithereens, the water inside coming down on him in a misty form. First step completed. He murmured and leaned against the tree to rest for some time. Before he knew it he was asleep. Naruto's mindscape. As soon as he got up in his mindscape, he was tackled to the ground and was kissed by Kyuubi passionately. After regaining his bearings, he kissed her back as well. After they separated, Kyuubi just took his hand and led him inside the house and sat him down on the couch. After that, she snuggled up to him and Naruto put his arms around her back and held her close. He was shocked when he felt her sobbing quietly, her face buried in the crook of his neck, trying to burrow even closer to him. "What's wrong, Kaiu-chan?" Naruto asked, his tone filled with concern and a little bewilderment. Kyuubi shook her head and stayed quietly in the same position. "Was my kiss really that bad?" Naruto asked, trying to cheer her up. Kyuubi let out a throaty giggle, shook her head, but still remained silent. "Come on, Kaiu-chan, you know that I don't like to see you sad, what's bothering you?" Naruto asked while gently rubbing her back and brought his other hand up to stroke her hair. "I really want to be the first one to bear your babies, Naruto-kun, but I am trapped in this seal. We can do just about everything in here, but the creation of life is impossible in here," Kyuubi said sadly. "You know that I am working on freeing you, Kaiu-chan, never abandon hope. We are close to figuring it out, but I feel as if there is a piece missing from my mother's notes. And you know that I am not ready to be a father yet. I will only be comfortable raising a family after Madara has been dealt with once and for all. So we have plenty of time. I promise you, you will be the first to bear me children," Naruto said as he kissed the side of her head. "I don't see why you are worried though, you know that I haven't yet properly kissed Mei-chan and Sakiko-chan. We just snuggle together and peck lightly. You know that, don't you?" Naruto asked. I love you Naruto-kun more than anything else in the world. Kyuubi said softly, leaning back to look him in the eyes. I love you too Kaiu-chan. Naruto said smiling. Time skipped that night. Naruto, Mei and Sakiko were sitting down in the training grounds after dinner, discussing what they would do regarding the evaluation exam tomorrow. They agreed that Mei and Sakiko would do most of the fighting, with Naruto assisting them. Granted it would be suspicious, but Naruto could just say that it was his fighting style and was more of a support fighter. Both Mei and Sakiko got up after that and then engaged themselves in a spar, while Naruto sat down and attempted to contact Tensa Zangetsu. Kyuubi had told him to visit him and that he was the one who would teach him all that he would require to know about his sword and the special chakra of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto concentrated the same way that he used to when he wanted to visit Kyuubi. The world suddenly appeared to stop in front of him and he soon found himself in his inner world, as he called it. He saw that Zangetsu was sitting down on a rock that was jutting out of the field and gazing up at the moon. Naruto wondered what he was thinking about was. Zangetsu-san? Naruto asked. You are going to go far Naruto. I can feel it, your strength, your resolve and your determination. I will assist you in any way that I can, Naruto. All that I ask for in return is to never change your beliefs and work together with me. Zangetsu said, looking directly at Naruto. I will work hard to meet your expectations Zangetsu-san. Naruto bowed towards him to show his respect. Zangetsu then started explaining the various techniques that the Uzumakis used while in battle. There were two techniques that stood out the most and were frequently used by them in battle. The first was home step method. It primarily consisted of a technique named as shunpo, flash step. It was a movement technique that allowed the user to move faster than the eye could follow. The focal point that determines the basis of this technique was speed. As speed is the main point of the technique, the method was best characterized by how fast one can get from point A to point B in the least amount of steps. Training and skill are what determined how fast a user of shunpo can move. Those of little skill in the technique or those who haven't used it an extended amount of time would obviously be out of practice, causing those individuals to be considerably slower, which requires the use of more steps to move the same distance and become winded far easier in a shorter amount of time. The second was kidm, demon arts. There were two main types of kidm, bakidm, way of binding, and hadm, way of destruction. Each jutsu is graded on a scale from 1 to 99, the latter being the most powerful and the most difficult to perform. Zangetsu had informed him that the Uzumaki Council was responsible for giving the grade of the jutsu created by an Uzumaki. The scale is a measure of difficulty, as there can be multiple jutsu which share the same level. To use kidm, an Uzumaki must recite the specific incantation for the spell, which is often long and requires a few seconds to speak. The Uzumakis, who were primarily weapon users, found that making hand seals during combat was difficult and would spell certain doom against a skilled opponent. So they created incantations that served the same purpose as hand seals in focusing and directing their chakra to use jutsus. Though kidm is commonly used by the Uzumaki clan in combat, it has several weaknesses that make it difficult to use for that purpose. All of the spells have fairly long incantations and require concentration. Because of this, the person using the kidm leaves themselves open to attack during the duration of the incantation. Do you understand everything that I have told you Naruto? Zangetsu asked after he had finished his long explanation. Naruto nodded. His thoughts on how these new techniques could be used to further augment his fighting style. He wondered how was it that Zangetsu knew so much about the Uzumaki clan and their techniques and asked him about it. The answer was something that he was not expecting. Every spirit residing inside an Uzumaki soul blade resides in a different dimension than the one he was in. Every time an Uzumaki awakens his bloodline, the blade spirits are able to sense it and scan his very being. If any spirit chooses his or her to be worthy, he transfers itself into his inner world and manifests itself as a weapon. Usually their personalities and beliefs complement each other and they choose such a person as their wielder. Whenever an Uzumaki dies or achieves complete mastery over his sword, the blade spirit returns itself to his home in the other dimension. He also told Naruto that the spirits could visit the dimension whenever they wished and thus this was the reason that Zangetsu knew so much about the Uzumakis. He told Naruto that he would be returning to the spirit world, as he called it, and would acquire the kidm and shunpo techniques. Naruto had a question, was it shunpo that you were using when we had sparred earlier? You just seemed to vanish from my sight. No Naruto, that was my natural speed. Shunpo is ... Midway through the conversation, Zangetsu vanished altogether and Naruto couldn't even see a flicker as to indicate the direction that he had gone in. This. Zangetsu said standing directly behind Naruto. Naruto was amazed by the technique. Such speed would rival even that of his father's Hirishin jutsu. When do we start? Naruto asked excitedly. Zangetsu began instructing him, teaching him the basics of the shunpo. The basic idea behind the technique was chakra manipulation. The Uzumaki's chakra was dense, and as such they were able to create a disk of chakra beneath their feet. This in turn provided the necessary thrust required for the technique to work. After about 2 hours of continuous practice, Naruto could perform Shunpo successfully in a controlled environment. He wasn't able to go very far, and his speed was not up to the mark. His concentration also left much to be desired, but at least he was making progress. That's enough, Naruto. Keep practicing it whenever you are able to. Try making the disc of chakra beneath your feet whenever you walk. With every step you take you will be training, and use your shadow clones to boost your training. You have learned much today. Zangetsu said, his tone underlying with a sense of pride. Thanks for everything, Zangetsu-san. Naruto waved at him and then faded from his sights. When Naruto opened his eyes he was surprised to see that both Mei and Sakiko had decided to take a nap, and apparently he was decided upon to be used as a pillow. Sakiko was holding his left arm in both of hers, leaning on his side and resting her head on his shoulders, and Mei was simply using his lap as a pillow. Naruto smiled at them and created a clone and took the both of them to their rooms and tucked them in. He went down to the training grounds again and opened the scroll that he had got from Jiraiya and read up on the second step to mastering the Rasengan. The second step was for the user to burst a rubber ball, and since rubber is thicker and air is completely different from water, it forces the user to use more chakra with the same haphazard rotation to break it. This step emphasizes power. He again found the required training tools, i.e. rubber balls, in a ceiling scroll. Naruto took a rubber ball in his hand and channeled more chakra than his previous attempts at breaking the water balloon and tried to maintain the same movement as before. The ball changed shape and a hole was made in it, but it didn't burst as the scroll described as the level required to master it to the next stage. Naruto sighed and created 200 clones. He directed 100 of them to practice Shunpo, and the rest of them worked on completing the second stage of the training for the Rasengan. He himself started training physically, practicing both his taijutsu katas, and then moved on to sparring against his clones. After 3 straight hours of rigorous physical exercise, Naruto sat down in a meditative position and ordered his clones to dispel in groups of 10 every 5 seconds. After all the clones had dispelled, he reviewed the acquired experiences and again tried doing the second step of the Rasengan. The rubber ball exploded violently, and even though Naruto had rooted himself to the ground using chakra, expecting such a reaction, he was still a bit pushed back, his feet digging into the ground. Naruto was simply amazed at the power of this jutsu, and it still had a stage left. Deciding to test out his progress in Shunpo, he was disappointed to find that he had only made a little progress in reducing the concentration time and increased the distance a bit, though his speed had remained the same. After that he turned in for the night. He didn't know anything about their sensei, but it was better to be prepared. Meanwhile, Izuki Yugao was standing in front of Hizuran Sarutobi, her commanding officer and the Hokage of Konoha. She had thought long and hard about her situation and was thoroughly confused. She was barely 15 years old, and although she was a part of the Konoha Jounin forces, she was promoted to Jounin from Takebetsu Jounin by the Hokage just days before. She had asked a reason for this unexpected promotion, and the Hokage had revealed something to her that shocked her. Her parents had died on a mission when she was 5, and after that she had dedicated herself to training. She didn't have that many friends, and due to her early graduation and subsequent promotion through the ranks, people her age were jealous of her power, and people of her rank didn't take her seriously, and frankly speaking, apart from their ninja careers, they had nothing in common. But then the Hokage had revealed that the person with whom her parents had drafted an arranged marriage was alive. She knew of the arranged marriage, but as she knew it, she was to be married to the son of the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato. As far as she knew, the Yondaime didn't have a son. But the Hokage had told her that Uzumaki Naruto, container of the Kyuubi, was in fact the son of the Yondaime himself. She had gaped at the Hokage for a while, then turned around and left without a word. Before she could leave, the Hokage had informed her that she would be the assigned Jounin sensei of Naruto's team. She had paused momentarily, nodded her head and left. Sitting at her apartment, she had often wondered what it would have been like if her fiancé was there with her. She was sure that she would definitely not feel so lonely and would have made friends. Now that she knew that he was alive, she was confused what she should do. She didn't have anything against Naruto personally and had to admit to herself that he was definitely cute. With his sun-kissed blonde hair and deep blue eyes, he was a rare specimen. His whisker-like marks on his cheeks just sealed the deal. But she was also acutely aware that he wasn't the most liked person in the village. She shook her head. It shouldn't matter what others thought of him, and she would at the very least get to know him. She had accepted the Hokage's proposal. But after meeting Naruto and the team today, she was overwhelmed. It wasn't the fact that he had 2 girlfriends that bothered her, she was sure that she could work with that, and considering his situation, it wasn't that uncommon for a person to be put under the crown of village, like Konoha that had many bloodline clans and welcomed more. But hearing their dreams and goals, she had realized that if she were to become their Jounin sensei, she would be hindering their potential and possibly endangering their lives. She couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. So she had gone to the Hokage with her concerns. I understand your concerns, Yugao-chan. But you have nothing to worry about, you are a skilled ninja. You have held the position of Takebetsu Jounin for over a year. I believe that you are more than adequate for the job. Sarutobi said gently. But Jounins are supposed to be experts in all the ninja ways, it takes them years to gather the experience, but the only reason that I was a Takebetsu Jounin was due to my skill with the sword. I really don't have the required experience. Yugao said, desperately trying to make the Hokage see her point. Sarutobi sighed, he knew that Naruto and the girls had received training from Tsunade and Jiraiya, so they had to be strong. Whatever Yugao lacked in her teaching skill could be covered by the both of them. But he had already given out too much information to her, he knew that she could be trusted, but it was better to be safe than sorry. Would it make you feel better if I had the team tested by another Jounin, Yugao-chan? Sarutobi asked after he gave his new idea some thought. Yugao considered the idea. Although it wouldn't help much with their missions, she would feel reassured that they didn't pass just because of her lacking skills. Most of the Jounins would leave the Genins to complete the mission themselves and only intervened if they were in trouble. She would just have to work extra hard and be much more careful than the rest of them. And while training them, she could even start her own training to better herself. I accept your idea, Hokage-sama. I have asked my team to meet me at Training Ground 11 tomorrow morning at 7. Yugao said. Understood. I will make the necessary arrangements, you will meet the Jounin there 10 minutes beforehand. Both of you can discuss how you want to test them. Dismissed. Sarutobi stated authoritatively. Yugao nodded once, bowed and then left. Time skip next morning. Naruto woke up around 5 o'clock the next morning, he performed some stretches and taking stock of his body, concluded that he was fully rested after yesterday's training. He hadn't ever been more thankful for his rapid recovery, it was the reason why he could literally train to the bone every day and not have any adverse side effects. At first he had felt that he was cheating somehow, he could do training exercises that the others couldn't even dream of doing it now safely. After Mei and Sakiko had sat him down and told him that they didn't feel that he was cheating, and although they felt a little jealous, it was something that they were okay with. They had reminded him that it was a part of his bloodline and a ninja uses every tool or advantage that he can have. He had never let this bother him again and had vowed to help the girls in their training in any way that he could. He had told them as much and received 2 pecks on his lips from them. Bringing himself out of his trip to memory lane, he went up to wake up the girls. It was the same each morning. He would wake up the both of them after his morning exercise and stretching, and then the 3 of them would then get ready to get through the day. Naruto decided to wear his mission clothes to training today. The 3 of them had received it as gifts from Tsunade, they were told to choose the clothes and the designs, and Tsunade had asked Jiraiya to inscribe some seals on them. The seals used were generally for durability and added strength. If ninjas didn't use such seals they would go through their whole wardrobe in a month and would be left with nothing to wear. Naruto wore a black sleeveless skin-tight mesh shirt, which also included a face mask covering his whole neck. It was something that he had ordered on the advice of Zangetsu. He had said that he would tell him later why he didn't need sleeves, and Tsunade had suggested that he add the face mask to hide his whisker marks. It appeared as a normal cloth but was in fact woven with small almost minuscule pieces of metal. Although it was heavy, it didn't hinder him much and allowed for fluid movement due to its design while increasing his defense. The inside of the shirt was lined with a common material for ninja clothing, otherwise wearing it for long periods of time would not be possible. Although the metallic material made it weak against fire, Naruto figured that the advantages far outweighed the flaws and had ordered them for the girls as well. He also wore dark blue Anbu-style pants and black ninja sandals. The cuffs of his pants were tied by gray bandages, keeping it from fluttering. His ninja pouch was tied to his right side with a dark brown belt, loosely held, that was tilted slightly towards the left. He also wore an orange scarf that was wrapped twice around his neck and resting on his shoulders loosely, with the rest of the scarf going down on both his sides, up to his mid-back. The ends of the scarf had the Uzumaki clan symbol, a circle with a whirlpool pattern, in black. Attached to the belt, resting on his lower back were what appeared to be 2 sake bottles. These held water that he could use to perform his water ninjutsu. It was an idea that he had come up with after he had learnt that seals could be used to store large amounts of water as well. The inside of the bottles were lined with seals that expanded the inside of the bottle. He carried 2 of them, just in case. Looking in the mirror, he couldn't help but think that he was lucky that the girls had helped him with his clothing choices. He looked like a ninja that was not to be trifled with. He went down to have a light breakfast and wait for the girls to get ready. As they came down the stairs, Naruto looked at their chosen dresses and couldn't help but blush. It wasn't that they were purposefully wearing revealing clothing, it was that they were garbed in standard ninja clothing for kunoichi, but they looked simply amazing. Mei was dressed in a long-sleeved dark blue dress that folds just below the knees. It seemed to be closed at the front with a zip and is kept open on the front right side from the waist down. The dress only covers up to the upper part of her arms and the underside of her breasts. Underneath, she was wearing the same mesh shirt as him that covered more of her upper body than her dress, but stops short of covering her shoulders and still leaves a sizable amount of her upper chest showing. She also wore a skirt in the same color as her dress and, underneath those, mesh leggings reaching down over her knees. Around her waist, she was wearing a belt with a pouch attached to the back on the left. Her Hit-8 was wrapped around her waist as a belt. She completed her outfit with high-heeled sandals and shin guards reaching up over her knees. Coupled with her long auburn hair that reached up to her lower back, she was a decidedly beautiful girl. Tsukiko was garbed in a white, sleeveless Chinese-style dress that was tucked into her shorts. The collars of the dress were up and covered half of her neck from view, and the neckline was V-shaped and ended just below the middle of her chest, showing a hint of cleavage. The shorts, which were black in color, were totally skin-fit and ended at the middle of her thighs. She wore two belts in an X shape over her hips, the right side having her ninja pouch and the left having a standard medical pouch. She also wore fingerless gloves on her hands that extended up to her upper arms. Her Hit-8 was on her right hand, wrapped just above where her gloves ended in a deep red cloth. Her hair, which was a beautiful black color, was put up so that there were two bangs framing her face going down below her chin and had tied her hair in a ponytail that reached the base of her neck. On her feet she had bandages wrapped and was wearing the standard ninja sandals in black. Naruto could just stare at them, as far as he was concerned, the girls before him were the epitome of beauty and also a symbol of strength. He realized why they had chosen such dresses, it complemented their style well. Mei with her larger chakra reserves was more of an ninjutsu support fighter, while Tsukiko was more of a close-ranged fighter, being stronger in taijutsu. The girls on the other hand were discreetly admiring Naruto. For a 12-year-old he was quite fit, they had seen that every time that they had gone swimming. His clothes made him look like a proper ninja, someone that you would prefer not crossing paths with. His hair, which was something that they absolutely loved, was spiky and hung on his head, not obstructing his vision, but still pulling off the look that it wasn't cut and just grew that way. Overall, they were feeling quite flustered. "Both of you look amazing. Beautiful yet deadly," Naruto said, awe shining clearly in his voice. The girls blushed prettily, and Mei replied, "Thank you Naruto-kun, you're not too bad yourself." Winking at him at the end, Tsukiko nodding along. The girls walked up to him and each took one of his arms and together they made their way to Training Ground 11. At Training Ground 11. As the trio of genin arrived at the scheduled meeting spot, they were surprised to see another person standing there along with their sensei. It was a man that appeared to be in his mid-20s, almost 6 feet tall, and had spiky silver-colored hair. He was dressed as a standard jounin of Konoha, but had a face mask similar to Naruto on his face. He was talking quietly with their sensei, and as they approached, he turned towards them. Naruto, now facing him, could recognize him. He saw as his eyes widened slightly before returning to its normal lazy attitude. Naruto smirked. Aki Kakashi. We finally meet, Naruto thought. The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.